Hello, and welcome to the Damon Rowan podcast. I'm Damon Rowan, and this is episode number 2 of the podcast. And just before I start, I want to say a massive thank you to everyone who listened, liked, shared, and messaged me about the first episode I released last week. I was actually blown away by the response, as I really didn't expect half the reaction that I got, and I really appreciate every single person who took time out of their day to interact with my content, and I'm very humbled to have such a strong support system behind me, so thank you so much for that. I'm also grateful for all the feedback I received in relation to the podcast, as I'll take that forward in how I continue to build, grow, and improve this podcast, and always invite feedback, as the better that I can get at this, hopefully the more people that can be helped in achieving their own health and fitness goals and creating the lifestyle they want for themselves. So getting into today's episode, I'm going to be going over some of the steps that you can take to build a healthier, more sustainable and enjoyable relationship with food, so that you can make better decisions for the long term that'll help you build and maintain your hard-earned results by striking a balance in your own process. So usually when people set health and fitness goals, there's often the requirement that some food restriction is in place, and this is necessary in that eating the right foods that align with your goals will help in achieving those goals more sustainably and likely at a faster rate. However, one of the issues that can stem from this is developing an unhealthy relationship with food. So what this can look like is when a person is obsessing over, say, maybe hitting all their calories and macros, i.e. weighing out most of all other foods, setting strict meal times, like, I have to have a protein shake and chicken within an hour after working out or I'll lose all my muscle, and basically having their life revolve around a strict diet and training regimen. Now, the mindset here is that if I work really hard and do all the right things, I'll get results much faster, and while this can turn out to be true, it's important to recognise that if you're only planning to put in hard work for the short term and haven't considered how you'll adapt to keeping these changes for the long term, you likely won't make lasting change or meaningful results. So for example, a person can probably adhere to the strict guidelines they set for themselves initially. However, after a week or two, when motivation starts to dwindle, the person is likely going to burn out and give in to temptation by binge eating a lot of food and hinder themselves from achieving any meaningful results. So to start off, it's helpful to understand what your goals are, so to create a better understanding into how you have to approach food in regards to those goals. So for most people, striking a balance between looking well, feeling healthy, and being able to enjoy their food is an attractive goal, as it allows for variation without being too strict on themselves. Now, your goals might be a different ratio or balance of these depending on what you want to achieve. For example, a bodybuilder may have to prioritise their appearance over food enjoyment most of the time, but I'm speaking in regards to the general population and what's the most common goal for most people. So having goals aligned with your values is going to create the right environment for you to stay on track in the long term, as keeping on top of things will feel a lot more natural and in turn feels like a lot less effort to maintain. Now, on the other hand, if you have goals that poorly align with your values and take a lot of effort to keep up with, motivation will likely dwindle after you become too stressed in keeping up with them, and you'll likely give in to temptation, which can lead to binge eating, stopping you from maintaining results in the long term. So first off, I would say to try find a balance that keeps you happy that also earns you results. So to help with this, next we're going to look at general healthy eating guidelines that'll help you in how you approach your food. And now it's fair to say that all food all the time will inevitably lead to weight gain, and on the other hand, no food all the time will lead to losing weight, but at the cost of being miserable with tough restrictions. So getting to understand the different foods and what they have to offer you is going to help in how you make better food choices and enjoy your approach to healthy eating. So for example, healthy foods give you a balance of energy to function, think and perform better with nutrients that support your health and immunity, whereas on the other hand, heavily processed junk foods can cause an imbalance in your energy, having you feel sluggish with foggy thinking, and can lead to inflammation and added stress to the body and mind. Now, I'm not demonizing processed foods and that you should never have any and only eat healthy foods. Both really do have their place in achieving an enjoyable and sustainable diet. However, what I am saying is to try and prioritise healthy foods when you can, as the benefits you'll be receiving in terms of achieving the goals you have, looking well and feeling a healthier, happier person in general are all goals to strive for. And then from there you can decide when you want to treat yourself with other foods that you can enjoy, knowing that you're healthy most of the time and deserve to treat yourself. So to set yourself up to succeed in the long term, applying guidelines that are flexible and aren't too strict will create an environment that's supportive and makes decision making around food much easier, instead of having you feel restricted in what you can and can't eat, and this is striking a balance. So here's some of the more popular guidelines I found to be helpful in achieving a healthier relationship with food, and hopefully you'll get some value out of them in achieving your own goals too. So first off is try to eat slowly. This not only allows you to enjoy and savour your food, but you'll also give yourself time to notice when you start to feel full, and you can stop eating when you feel satisfied instead of just eating everything in front of you just for the sake of it. And the next one is if you want to treat yourself to something like a snack or a takeaway meal, try having a smaller portion than the larger options available, and this allows you to still enjoy the food without going off the rails and eating too much. And after that, the next one is for 1 or 2 meals a day, try to replace your carb or complex carb portion with vegetables instead. And this small adjustment will actually help compound results over time in reducing your overall calorie intake, and will also give you a boost of nutrients that you'll help feel and perform better. And the next tip is if you're unsure whether to go eat food at certain times of the day, ask yourself on a scale of 1 to 10 how hungry you are. So if you're a 6 or below, leave it and check again in about half an hour. And what this does is to help prevent you eating out of boredom or eating just for the sake of eating, and can help reduce the unnecessary calorie intake. And the next tip is if you're drinking alcohol, try to use diet mixers. Now my personal favourite is vodka, water and lime, as I find it has the least impact if you're going to be drinking alcohol, or try to have a glass of water in between alcoholic drinks. And this of course is going to slow down the rate that you consume alcohol, and another bonus is reducing the likelihood of a bad hangover the next day, which is definitely advice I'd have appreciated if I started doing it sooner. But the next tip is try to recognise when you eat out of boredom rather than hunger. And when you do begin to recognise this, try to replace eating with a different activity so that you're not eating just for the sake of passing time. And the last tip is to bring lunch to work or college so you know what you're eating in terms of calories, macros and other aspects that'll help align with your goals, and you don't have to depend on settling for whatever work or another place is serving. Now, notice that these guidelines are different as opposed to maybe other diet parameters, as they aren't extreme and don't invite you to operate in an all or nothing fashion where you're either quote unquote good or quote unquote bad with your diet. Instead, these guidelines offer flexibility and invite you to make better food choices if and when you can. So this removes a lot of the self-judgment and stress you can place on yourself when viewing a diet as black and white, and that you're either on the diet or off it in every decision you make. So flexibility offers opportunity for change in the long term, whereas rigidity is something that can usually only be kept for the short term. So now that you understand some of the general guidelines on what a healthy relationship with food is, I'll illustrate some of the common thought processes and guidelines people set for themselves that can create an unhealthy relationship with food. So one of them might be, I can only have X amount of calories per day, and if I go over this, I've ruined my diet. So this creates an unhealthy rigidity in how you approach your diet. And the next one can be like, carbs make me fat, so I can't have any. And this is untrue in that, like, no food makes you fat necessarily, but too much of any food can make you fat. And the decider in that is usually calorie balance. So in that, if you take in more calories than you use up on a consistent basis, then you're likely to start gaining weight and fat. The next one can be like, I can only have ice cream or a treat if I lose weight this week. And this creates an unhealthy relationship with food, as you allow yourself to enjoy only certain foods if you hit a certain goal. And if you don't hit that goal, you're not allowed to enjoy these foods. And this can lead to more temptation of these foods, which can lead to binge eating if you go off track, and can also cause you to judge yourself harshly if you fail to reach these goals you set for yourself. The next one can be like, I can't have any treats or processed foods. This is ridiculous, and that can create an all or nothing mindset, and that you restrict yourself to only eating healthy foods, and therefore you don't strike a balance, and this can lead to cravings, temptations to give in, and it'll likely lead to binge eating if and when you do give in. And the next one can be, if I eat something bad or I have junk food, I have to do extra workouts this week to make up for it. And this not only creates added stress in that if you do have a treat, you likely won't enjoy it as much because you've set an independent punishment for yourself in response to having certain foods, and creating an unhealthy perspective on both food and exercise as a result. And the last example can be, if I only eat healthy foods all week, I can have all the healthy foods I want at the weekend. Or if I'm eating healthy this month and hit all my goals, I can have all the healthy foods I like after that. Now, this isn't a balanced approach to healthy eating, as it's both unsustainable and won't lead to you making long-term change or help you maintain lasting results. And that pretty much covers all the examples and thought processes behind building an unhealthy relationship with food. And you probably heard or even practiced a few of the guidelines I've just mentioned there, and the reason I say guidelines such as these create an unhealthy relationship with food is because they induce rigidity and have you adhere to strict guidelines. So this usually leads to feeling constricted and trapped in how you approach food, and your motivation declines as stress continues to build while using any of these approaches, which is usually followed by breaking out of these restrictions by binge eating as a result and damaging the progress you've made. So coming back to my original point, in that if you create guidelines that align with your values and goals, it's going to help you massively in how you build a healthy relationship with food and enjoy results over the long term. So becoming more mindful in how you approach food and offering flexible options for yourself removes unnecessary stress and allows you to build a healthier and happier relationship with food as a result. You'll be encouraged to enjoy food and eat a wider variety, as you'll feel less restricted and reduce the likelihood of breaking out and binge eating, and these are the strategies to look to improve in achieving your own goals. And that essentially covers the basics in creating a better relationship with food for yourself. And my advice is to continually try finding the balance that works for you, in that you get results but also enjoy the food, as this is the most sustainable way of achieving your goals. And it's important to recognise that you'll have some good weeks and where almost everything goes right for you and you do everything right, along with bad weeks that where everything seems to go wrong, and it's important to recognise that mistakes can happen like that. The important thing is not to feed too much into either of these to create rigidity for yourself again. Flexibility is the way to long-term success in how you pursue your health and fitness, so commit to doing your best and recognise that your best doesn't have to be perfect to get what you want. And that is episode 2 of the podcast. Thanks for listening. Have an awesome week, and I'll catch you next Wednesday for another podcast. Bye.